Steve Kogan, Man Cave Classroom at A10. We're still in the Cold War, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Germany.
Yeah.
A crisis here.
All right, so Germany, they were the enemy during World War II. They were the first to surrender. Well, actually, Italy was technically the first to surrender during World War II, but Germany surrendered during World War II. And then at Yalta, when the West, Stalin and Truman, and the East, Churchill and Truman, and the East, Stalin, were like, hey, what are we going to do after the war? First thing they decide, they're going to divide up Germany into two separate Germanys. There is going to be a West Germany that will be free and democratic and allied with the United States, and there will be an East Germany that will be communist and allied with the Soviet Union, a Soviet satellite state, as we mentioned in a previous video. But not only that, Berlin itself was going to be divided up into an East Berlin and a West Berlin. So inside of communist East Germany, you had a tiny little part, half of a city that was free and democratic.
I feel like this cartoon that you came up with, that you found, I mean, we'll probably come back to this a couple of times, where you're going to have what one side is going to look like. You know, the West Berlin is going to look like this, the East side is going to look like this. I mean, pretty much.
So, all right, I didn't get into that specifically, but there were the different France district, American district,
different zones.
But then they all became West Germany, and the same thing happens in Berlin. But you basically have tiny little West Berlin, free and democratic, surrounded by East Berlin and East Germany, which is all communist.
Now, I almost feel like we're going to go back to, like, you know, the ending of World War I, where we're a little bit too harsh on Germany, and that proved to be a disaster.
Yeah.
Where it almost seems like, you know, one side wants to be a little easier on Germany, where, you know, the Soviet Union and Stalin is not going to forget what happened.
Exactly.
And they want to cream them.
What was it? 8.5 million Soviet soldiers and another 10 million.
And I'm sure there's going to be
Soviet civilians.
And I'm sure there's going to be different sources that have different statistics that are probably have it much higher than that. But, you know, again, that, you know, when you go back to something from World War I at the end, you know, that whole, hey, let's be nice to the loser, I guess you could say, or the
don't kick them when they're down.
Don't kick them when they're down, and the Soviet Union hasn't learned that lesson. They want to kick them while they're down, and of course they have their reasons. So
basically, you know, Stalin is looking at West Berlin, this half a city in a communist country, and he's like, no, I don't want to divide up half. They got half the country. I should get this whole half. So his plan is going to be to completely blockade all of West Berlin. He cuts off all river access. He cuts off all river access. He cuts off every road into the West Berlin. He cuts off every railroad into West Berlin. And he's like, fine, I'm going to starve him out. And this is really like the first true showdown of the Cold War.
Very warlike.
Yeah.
You know, wars have started over less.
Yes. So this is the first true showdown of like who's going to blink first. You know, and we chose this map specifically and the next map specifically because there's one thing that Stalin can't control.
That's it.
He may have cut off the railroads, he may have cut off the roads and the rivers, but he cannot control the sky.
And that's how pretty much we're gonna, I mean, this is pretty creative, you know, in terms of, all right, now you have that section of Germany that can't get any supplies whatsoever. All right, so what can you do? Well, you can drop them in.
It was like one plane was landing every 3 minutes.
Yep.
Essentially, carrying food and supplies and everything that West Berlin was going to need to survive. Because now the United States and our allies are kind of putting it in Stalin's hands. Like, all right, you blockaded this. We found a way around it. Go ahead and shoot the planes down.
Yeah.
If you want to. Because no one at this wants to start another world war.
No one wants to pull the trigger.
Yeah. So Stalin just had to sit there and watch every 3 minutes as a plane was flying.
And the funny thing is, for the 3 minutes, I saw a really great documentary where they were interviewing one of the pilots. And he's like, we were anxious to get back down there and land because there were pretty girls serving us coffee every time. So it's just like...
It's always about pretty girls.
Yeah, it's so funny about how that comes about. But, you know, again, you know, people watching at home, it's just like, you know, if one shot is fired, I mean, this is going to be one of these, quite a few of these moments throughout the Cold War where we're pretty close.
Yeah.
You know, we keep getting closer and closer, and it's just, you're almost daring them to fire the first shot, but they don't. But, I mean, very, very interesting.
It's early in the game. It's early in the game, and we just scored the first goal.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's what just happened in this Cold War.
So Germany's divided, as Mr. Kogan was talking about. West, yeah, but west side and east side. Berlin is divided as well. We talked about Stalin closing all those railroads, rail lines, river routes. You know, again, looking to, I guess you can almost say, starve them out,
Yep.
or get them to submit.
And 11 months.
11
months long, this Berlin airlift takes place.
That's a lot of flying.
You know, talk about logistics and,
Oh, of
and
course.
planning and I mean, it was boom. It was the first true score of the Cold War. The response comes several years later,
Right.
because what starts happening is, wait a minute, I'm in communist East Germany.
I'm in democratic.
I'm in
West.
democratic West Berlin. Bad, good. So at this point, it's no longer Stalin in charge. I think it's Khrushchev in '61 when the wall starts to be built. But they're basically, East Germany is going to say, okay, we're just going to build a wall around West Berlin to stop people from defecting, you know, free. Or I'm sorry, communist free, or really communist free. And literally, I mean, this wall like went through homes, like straight through.
And this awesome cartoon
Yeah.
that you found. I mean, again, you know, we'll probably come back to this
And
quite
the
a bit.
Berlin Wall, I think, of everything that happens during the Cold War, is probably the most symbolic.
Yes.
The word I'm looking for is symbolism.
Symbolism, not symbology, symbolism.
It becomes the most symbolic aspect of the Cold War. Actually, I have a piece of the Berlin Wall at home when it came down in '89.
Yeah, I remember being in high school and it being a pretty big thing.
You know, and then
people
this
selling
was, I mean,
pieces.
it was guarded by barbed wire, German shepherds, and machine guns.
Yep.
We've got some cool videos that we'll show in
Oh,
class
yeah.
of people trying to get past the wall and what it looked like. But this is, you know, the symbol of oppression and tyranny.
And then even when that wall came down, you know, this is something if you speak to people who went to, who've been to that area, even after the wall comes down, you know, this side never really fully recovers. You know, from an economic standpoint, you know, there's still neighborhoods where it takes them a long time for that recovery, for the whole, I guess, the whole idea of, you know, democracy, free enterprise. You know, this side was always doing well. It took a long time.
You know,
It's still a long
for
time.
our students, it's like, wait, there was a West Germany and East Germany,
Yeah.
but that's the way we grew up.
Yeah, it
you know,
was.
there were two Germanys until 1989, 1990.
Even in the Olympics.
You know, yeah, the
Yeah.
East German women who were always like taking steroids.
Right.
Yeah, because the communists wanted to win.
Yeah. We're good. All right. Thanks for watching.